And so it's late at night, and it's the first time I've had to film a video all week because it's been half term. We've been doing things like this. We have been taking magical rides on little white trains and just enjoying half term breaks from colleges. So it's been great, but I've been absolutely itching to get back and show you my pile of books for Goth Lit November, which is hosted by the lovely Bailey over at Bailey Jean and also the lovely Rachel at Second Thoughts About the Mission. I've been so excited. So late night it is. I've got this big pile of books in front of me. I just wanted to share some new books that I bought for the challenge, also what was on my bookcase, also what I found recently in secondhand book sellers around here. So Goth Lit November, reading Gothic literature all November. I am so excited. Today I'm going to show you the books that are my pile of potential. There is no way I'm going to read all of these, and I have no intention of putting any pressure on myself to read any set number apart from loving reading. That's the only pressure I want to put on myself. I want to savour these books. I want to really enjoy it. I want to share with you guys as well as part of a community. So what books have I got? Well, I'm going to start actually with October's read because I think this fits Goth Lit November. So I'm not going to be reading this because I've just finished it, and it is a whopping 1,207 pages long. So I'm certainly not going to be rereading this again for Goth Lit November because I've only just finished it. But Anne Rice's The Witching Hour. So this is the first of a trilogy of books for the Mayfair Witches series, and I think this fits because if you think what Gothic literature is, setting is important. It's like a castle or some grand home where there's a sense of being trapped or a sense of the supernatural within it. Often it's linked to the legacy of a past, and this has all of that. You've got the old house where the women through time are stuck. You've definitely got a supernatural legacy going on. You've got intrigue. There is heightened emotion. There's wild nature and the weather with the trees almost coming alive and the garden feeling alive. It's all there in The Witching Hour. So I am going to make a case for this could be a potential if you haven't already read it. Now, it was only when I was a few hundred pages from the end of this that my friend Thea over at Garden Goddess Tarot mentioned that it was part of a series. So I immediately went online and looked at the other two books. I was going to carry on with the second book, and it was in my Amazon basket, but I hadn't pulled the trigger, and I popped out to my local charity shop just in case. There was nothing on the shelves there. However, the woman behind the desk came out and whispered to me, "Do you like supernatural fantasy books?" And I told her I did. I told her, in fact, that's what I was looking for. And she whispered to me that the owners were Christian in the shop, and they had told her to take all the supernatural fantasy books off the shelves and to throw them away, and she couldn't bear to do it. And she had a whole bag, an entire huge bag of books that she just handed to me and said, "Just take them." Don't you know what was in there but part 2 of the trilogy, Lasher by Anne Rice. So I've got part 1 and part 2. They're even the same editions. I could not believe it. I squealed when I opened the bag and saw this. But I am not going to read this as part of Goth Lit November. Don't even know whether this one fits the remit as well as this one. But after 1,200 pages of this. I'm going to take a little break and I'm going to read some of the books in front of me, but also in there, which I haven't got with me, were some of her Vampire Chronicle series books as well, which I do know fit Gothic. So Anne Rice, she's a great contender, but I know it's not going to be part of my November reading. But what is a part, because I started today, you can see from all the tabs in there already that for the start of Gothic November, look here are my tags here. My first book, Wuthering Heights. So this is a new book that I bought specifically for this month's challenge. It is a Wordsworth classic series. I absolutely love the embossed cover. I am about 135 pages through this in one day because I could not put this down today. I have absolutely loved it. Now, this isn't my first read of Wuthering Heights. I used to have a really old-fashioned leather-bound book of Wuthering Heights, which I've read 2 or 3 times. But do you know what? I cannot find that book anywhere. And I also cannot remember the story at all. And I know why. I can't remember it because at the time I would have read this in my, say, 20s. And I used to read fiction back then, chasing numbers, chasing to get to the end of the book. With impatience, I would read with impatience just to have the book done to say I'd read it. I was always chasing high reading book tallies, and no wonder I never remembered it. And what I remember of the story is literally not the story that I'm reading, with the idea of savouring the book, which is why I've said this Gothic November, although I've got a lot of books to share as potentials, if I only read this book all November and like write my thoughts down about it and chat to people about it and bring a review about it, that will be enough for me. I am done now chasing amounts or chasing fast-paced reading. All I want to do now is savour books, whether that be 10, 20 pages a day or 5 pages a day or 100 pages a day, whatever it is, I want to savour it. And Gothic November has really presented me with a doorway back into fiction reading. Getting ready for this challenge and doing my book case videos, which I've just done, it made me realise that my fiction reading, I haven't fallen into it for such a long time. I've been reading non-fiction for years and years and years, and it's kind of gifted me back my fiction reading. So we're starting with Wuthering Heights, Emily Bronte, Heathcliff and Cathy, up on the moors, and I am loving it, and I can't wait to see what else I've forgotten in this book, because it is so beautiful, as you can see from all the tabs already on it. I've cried once already reading this today. Yep, loving this. Another classic I am absolutely really excited to read is Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. I have never read Frankenstein. How can I be 55 and have never read Frankenstein? So this book was already in the house. My middle daughter thought she was going to be doing English literature at A levels, and then at the last minute changed her mind. But I'd already bought her some of the summer reading list for A level, and this was one of them. So this was already in the house, and I'm really excited. I can't believe I've never read it. So Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, it's another Wordsworth classic edition. Both of these would land in the Victorian Gothic era. I know that Rachel and Bailey have split Gothic November into classics time period, Victorian, Southern Gothic and contemporary. So we've got 2 here from the Victorian Gothic. along with another of the Bronte sisters, this time not Emily, but we've got Charlotte Bronte. This is another Wordsworth classic edition of Jane Eyre. So again, I am certain that I've read at some point Jane Eyre, probably in my 20s. I cannot remember a single thing about it. And again, it's that chasing high numbers of reading. It's taken me 50 years to realise that slowing down and savouring is, for me, way more important. So I'm really excited to read this. I'm going to say for the first time, because I have no memory of it. Now I know that Bailey loves this book, so Bailey kind of said, if you haven't read this, do yourself a favour and read it. And she kind of, it felt like she was setting it as some sort of wondrous homework, so it would be rude not to. So I am being a good Bailey student here. So we've got 3 Victorian Gothic books here, and along with, I think this one is a 4th, Wilkie Collins' The Woman in White. This again is another book that I know I've read and I have no recollection of whatsoever. So the blurb on this one says, when the hero, Wallace Hartwright, on a moonlit night in North London, encounters a solitary, terrified and beautiful woman dressed in white, he feels impelled to solve the mystery of her distress. The intricate plot is peopled with a finely characterised cast, from the peevish invalid Mr. Fairley to the corpulent villain Count Fosco and the enigmatic woman herself. Yeah, even reading the blurb, there is no recollection coming through. So if I get to this one, then brilliant. If not, I might leave this for sort of a month of winter reading and see how it goes then. But that is another one that I've got in ready for this month. So from the classic list, The Castle of Otranto by Horace Walpole. I don't quite know what's going on with this edition. It was super cheap on I think it was World of Books. It was only like a couple of pounds. I had picked up a copy before of this from the charity shop, but it was just so musty when I opened it. I didn't want to read that copy, so I picked up a cleaner version. But it's this like huge volume, size wise, if you compare it to say The Woman in White, and it feels more like a pamphlet. So I don't like the binding of it, but I am really interested to read this, which is one of the earliest of the, if not the first, I think, Gothic literature novels. Of course, you've got the castle, you've got the importance of the setting there, and I think that is a beautiful front cover, even if I don't really like the binding. It says on the back that this is the first Gothic novel, The Castle of Otranto, written in 1764. So, a significant book here. Let's go right back to the start if we're going to start a study of Gothic literature, which for me it feels like the start of a self-study. But the next 3 books were picked up, 3 for £1 from my local charity shop, and I kind of think that these fit the description of Gothic literature. Of course, the first one obviously does. This is Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca. I have read this, and again, I cannot tell you a single thing about it. So I am working on ways of improving my memory of books. This has been a joy. I bought some tabs for the first time ever, which you saw in already placed on my Wuthering Heights. I'm going to start trying to think of ways to annotate for memory when I read, and to kind of develop ways of remembering books. Slowing down for me is going to be the main way. But of course, Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca, it is a really important, I think, Gothic novel. You've got the big house of Manderley as well. It's got all the settings that you need for that idea of Gothic literature. The blurb says, "Last night I dreamt I went to Manderley again. Working as a lady's companion, the heroine of Rebecca learns her place. Her future looks bleak until, on a trip to the south of France, she meets Max de Winter, a handsome widower whose sudden proposal of marriage takes her by surprise. She accepts, but whisked from glamorous Monte Carlo to the ominous and brooding Manderley, the new Mrs. de Winter finds Max a changed man, and the memory of his dead wife Rebecca is forever kept alive by the forbidding housekeeper Mrs. Danvers." So I am super excited to reread this. There are tips of the story coming in of this, I remember, but yeah, a reread of this is going to be really exciting. So the second book from the charity shop is this book by Laura Purcell, Bone China it's called. So she was the author of The Silent Companions. It says on the back that it's set in Cornwall in a house called Morr House. So you've got the big house in the mix, and the blurb says, "Consumption has ravaged Louise Pinecroft's family, leaving her and her father alone and heartbroken. But Dr. Pinecroft has plans for a revolutionary experiment to relaunch his medical career." 40 years later, so we've got that legacy and that movement through time and the past being a part of the story, which is part of Gothic literature, set in a house. So it's looking good at the moment for Gothic literature. It goes on to say, 40 years later, Hester Y arrives at Morr House to take up a position as nurse to the now partially paralysed and almost entirely mute Miss Pinecroft. Hester has fled to Cornwall to try and escape her past, but she soon discovers that her new home may be just as dangerous as her last. So you've got that idea of possible legacy, possibly a history and a past that's important to the story. It sounds like there's something foreboding within the house. The thing that really made me think that this was possibly Gothic literature is one of the reviews on the back by the Sunday Express that says, "Purcell has established a claim on Daphne du Maurier's territory of psychological suspense and Gothic spookiness. Victorian tale replete with laudanum, tuberculosis and possibly fairies." So you've got strange goings on inside a house with Gothic spookiness. So I picked that one up. And then the last one that I picked up, I was so excited to find this in a charity shop. So this is Ava Reid's A Study in Drowning. So the blurb says, "Effie has always believed in fairy tales. She's had no choice. Since childhood, she's been haunted by visions of the Fairy King. She's found solace only in the pages of Angarad, Emrys Mirrodin's beloved epic about a mortal girl who falls in love with the Fairy King and then destroys him. Effie's tattered copy is all that's keeping her afloat through her stifling first term at her prestigious architecture college. So when the late author's family announces a contest to design his house, Effie feels certain that this is her destiny. But Hiraeth Manor is an impossible task. A musty, decrepit estate on the brink of crumbling into a hungry sea. And when Effie arrives, she finds she isn't the only one who's made a temporary home there. Preston, a stodgy young literature scholar, is studying Midrin's papers and is determined to prove her favourite author is a fraud. As the two rival students investigate the reclusive author's legacy, mystery, they discover that the house's foundation isn't the only thing that can't be trusted. There are dark forces, both mortal and magical, conspiring against them, and the truth may bring them both to ruin. And the review on the back says that it's an endlessly readable mix of historical fiction, Gothic mystery and fantasy romance. So you've got a Gothic mystery there with wild nature, this time with the ocean, and with a famous author's house, and something dark and sinister in the shadows. So a study in drowning, I grabbed that as well as a potential read for Gothic November. So £3 for £1, not bad at all. Another book that I had in for my daughter's summer reading list that never got read is this one, The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. First published in 1890, this is a Wordsworth classic edition again. I have never read this, don't really know much about it, but it's going on the pile of possibilities to be read. Another charity shop find is a beautiful copy that I can't believe ended up in a charity shop that I paid £1 for, and it is Jane Austen, Northanger Abbey. But look at this beautiful hardback edition of it. It's just so pretty. Now, I can remember trying to get back into the classics probably about 15 years ago, and I tried to read Northanger Abbey, but I tried to read it at the speed that I used to try and read at, and it just was all going completely over my head. There was no savouring, there was no slowing down, and I abandoned it about a third of the way through, claiming I would never read another classic ever again. And then I spent the last 15 years reading non-fiction. So it just seemed like a full circle moment when I saw this sitting on the charity shop shelf for £1. It was like a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. Let's get back into Jane Austen. I also found the most beautiful copy of Pride and Prejudice as well, which I don't have in front of me. But Northanger Abbey with the big abbey, I think this fits into Gothic fiction. I think it does. If it doesn't, then anyway, it's on the pile. I also picked up Susan Hill's The Woman in Black, the classic English ghost story. Now, this was mentioned in the list of movies that Bailey put out on her original video, because part of Gothic November, it's not just reading the books, watching movies as well, which is one of the things I want to start trying to do to aid my memory with these books. And I just saw it really cheap on World of Books. It was a couple of pounds, and I grabbed it, and it doesn't even look like it's been read, so it's fantastic. So this is Susan Hill's The Woman in Black. I absolutely love the etching work on the cover. It says on the back that Arthur Kipps, a junior solicitor, is summoned to attend the funeral of Mrs. Alice Drablow, the sole inhabitant of Eel Marsh House. The house stands at the end of a causeway wreathed in fog and mystery. But it is not until he glimpses a wasted young woman dressed all in black at the funeral that a creeping sense of unease begins to take hold, a feeling deepened by the reluctance of the locals to talk of the woman in black and her terrible purpose. So a definite ghost story here. That blurb is just it's so Gothic literature. A house wreathed in fog and mystery. I love it. It only looks like a short book. It's just under 200 pages. So a bit of a short read in the mix if I want one. Okay, this next book I'm really excited about. Now, this is a recommended book from one of you, lovely lot, and it is The Ghost Woods. Now, I was talking in one of my videos about my fascination with mushrooms and how that's developed over the last few years, and that idea of sort of a liminal world where mushrooms are just beneath the surface. It's like a world just beneath the soil. And one of you lot said to me in the comments section, you must read The Ghost Woods. You can see there are mushrooms on the front. So I picked this up as an old library copy that was being sold, again for £1. So chuffed to find this for £1. It is it says on the front it's an eerie Gothic thriller, a house full of secrets, an ancient wood, a long hidden mystery. So you've got that idea of a mystery or a legacy going back in time. You've got the location, you've got some secret house full of things that you're not quite sure is going on. It's by C.J. Cook. The blurb on the back says that Linden Hall is shrouded in folklore, old stories of ghosts, of witches, and of a child who is not quite a child. Now the woods are creeping closer and something has been unleashed. Pearl Gorham arrives in 1965, one of a string of young women sent to Lichen Hall to give birth. When she meets the mysterious mother and young boy who lives in the grounds, the truth of the house emerges and the darkness moves in. Pearl must rethink everything she knows and risk what she holds most dear. So, sounds chilling, sounds eerie, sounds like a big house full of supernatural mysteries and a past where you might get trapped. It's perfect Gothic literature reading. And I was told in the comment that was left to me that the mushrooms are actually characters in the book. So I am super excited to read that. So this would be in contemporary, and it's The Ghost Woods by C.G. Cook. And then last of all is a book that I treated myself to in November. It's my birthday month. My birthday is the 23rd of November, so I am right on the cusp of Scorpio, the first day of Sagittarius. I am a Sagittarian through and through. It's November, it's birthday month. I treated myself to a hardback book that has, I think it's not been out that long. It's by Kirsten White and it's called Lucy Undying. Dracula changed her, love will transform her. I didn't want to do Gothic November without a vampire story somewhere in the mix. And the blurb says, in this epic and seductive Gothic fantasy, a vampire escapes the thrall of Dracula and embarks on her own search for self-discovery and true love. Her name was written in the pages of someone else's story. Lucy Westenra was one of Dracula's first victims, but her death was only the beginning. Lucy rose from the grave a vampire and has spent her immortal life trying to escape from Dracula's clutches and trying to discover who she really is and what she truly wants. Her undead life takes an unexpected turn when in 21st century London she meets another woman who is also yearning to break free from her past. Iris's family has built a health empire based on a sinister secret, and they'll do anything to stay in power. Lucy has long believed she would never love again, but she finds herself compelled by the charming Iris, while Iris is mesmerised by the confident and glamorous Lucy. But their intense connection and blossoming love is threatened by forces from without. Iris's mother won't let go of her without a fight, and Lucy's past still has fangs. Dracula is on the prowl again. Lucy Westenra has been a tragically murdered teen, a lonesome adventurer and a fearsome hunter, but happiness always eluded her. Can she find the strength to destroy Dracula once and for all, or will her heart once again be her undoing? So, Lucy Undying. A Dracula tale with a twist from one of his first victims. That sounds like a brilliant Gothic read for November as well. So that's it. I am going to finish reading Wuthering Heights first. It's a big first read. and it's a big one for these other books to try and follow, because I cannot tell you how much I'm loving Wuthering Heights. And whether I only get to this one book, whether I get to 2 books, whether I get to 3 books or more, it's not a race. And I think also we all have different lives. I do think that comparing our reading quantity to other people is just not really wise at all, because we all have different things to do and different time schedules, don't you? Like this last week I've done no videos, I've done only reading today, and it's just been non-stop. So half term with 3 kids, 2 dogs and friends stopping, there's no time for it, whereas somebody else might have had a week where they could sit and read all week. So I'm going to stop the comparison games with my racing to get books read. I'm also going to stop thinking I've failed if I don't read loads. I might come back to you at the end of the month and I've only just read this. I don't know, but it doesn't matter. But what I will come back to you is really having enjoyed Gothic November. That is my one and only aim. To just love what I'm reading, whether that be 100 pages or 5 pages. And I hope that you might consider joining in and doing the same and taking all pressure off and supplanting it with enjoyment and savouring words. So I'm going to say a great big thank you to Rachel and to Bailey for setting up November as this beautiful doorway to reading adventure for us all. I just can't wait to cozy down under the blankets, if I can ever get Luna to give me my blanket back, and to read. And I'm going to bring you some reading vlogs and reading videos hopefully through November. In fact, there's going to be more books for sure on the channel now that I've rediscovered my love of fiction reading, because it's magic, and that's what this channel is all about. It's about finding magic in life and living. So, surrounded by books, I'm going to stop waffling now and say thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.